All right, Milo and Jake, power couple.
Hello, hello.
Hey, how's it going, Milo? Is Jake there, or are we just one on one? And
I'm you're
oh, okay. So how's it going, guys? How do you think the draft went?
All right, we got organized. Um, I think that the draft went honestly, like a dozen times better than I expected for it to. Um, like JB, I spent the last 2 hours before the draft preparing for the draft,
Hmm.
and that's like all I had going for me. Um, and I'm actually kind of happy with how my draft ended up being because initially my plan had been quite simply to try to do a buy typing and make it so that constantly whoever I was playing against, I had to like predict swaps. So electric and flying, for instance.
Right.
Ground moves being the safe moves against electric, but completely useless against
Right.
flying. Um, and so I was like, well, the big hinge on that is getting Tapu Koko, and I didn't.
Ah, big rip.
Um, but in the end, I'm like super happy because what ended up happening instead is that I got a very resistant team.
Okay.
And I think that like that's my favorite part about it is that a lot of people underestimate me. Like I'm very average at most things. When you were just talking about like strategy versus like reflex, and I can't really do either. At least not well. Um, but
You say that, but I feel like I've read the phrase in the Little Cup, Milo won with 5 Pokemon left, quite a lot.
and that's
So,
what I was just about to say. In the Little Cup, I did still come in second place. And it's it wasn't just because like I I got like a really strong team or got super lucky. I took a little bit more time studying and strategizing.
yeah.
And what my new team is now that I'm really excited about is that because it's so resistant, there is not going to be a single week up until the playoffs where I don't use an ad drop. Um,
Gotcha.
my team is very, very flexible without having a lot of really weak units. So, Celestella as a like general body tank is huge. Um, and likewise, combining that with the fact that Toxtricity is my main damage dealer, um, it stays exactly the same as my initial strat. My opponent has to predict switches. Like, is the flying type going to come in and completely nullify the ground type move that I was planning on using against Toxtricity?
Right.
Um, but more importantly than that, because I have in my free pick slot one of each tier, I am capable of flexing out anything that's left to deal with whoever I'm facing that week.
Gotcha. I have a couple questions. So the first one is the tier 5 pick, right? That's the bird that can be different birds, right? Are you
Down
limited
to
to whichever bird you are, or no?
That's a fun question that I have to ask.
Okay.
but down to that pick, even Oricorio was not a throwaway pick. For that reason, if I'm not limited, if I'm capable of choosing whatever form of Oricorio is most appropriate for the match that I'm playing that week,
Right.
I've given myself the flexibility to deal with each opponent as they come.
Yeah, that would be fucking wild. That's
And,
that's so good. That's like
and that's the exact best part about the team that I've built.
yeah.
Is that the only person who scares me for me to play against is going to be Greg, and that's because Greg's going to know when I add or drop something. But everyone else is not going to know what my team's like bringing. I have a strong unit for every situation.
Can you not look at the roster before that happens? Or do you just mean Greg's gonna know like before everybody else?
Right, Greg's going to know before the week that I play against him if I
Yeah.
add or drop something to deal with him.
Fair enough.
So that's the only weakness that or big matchup that I'm worried about. But outside of that, I'm kind of contenting myself to sticking middle of the pack, people don't necessarily think of me as being particularly strong at most types of gaming, but likewise, I did come in second in Little Cup.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm gonna work that. I'll work with that.
when we played, it was very. This is not an attack. It was very condescending and very irritating to me, and it worked towards your favor that you just said every move I was going to use as I was using it, as you just switched in and out of Pokemon. You read me very much like a book, and I got very tilted.
I'm sorry.
There's no to say no. I'm just saying, like, I get that you think that people do maybe undervalue. I'm not one of those people because, one, I know that you did very well, and two, it's not just like when we played, you knew everything that I was gonna do, every move from like all the Pokemon I did, and you read like all the switches of stuff, and I was very impressed. And I'm happy that you're happy with your team. Second question: what happened with Flygon and Altaria? What happened there? Because it looks like you were gonna pick one, and then you didn't, and then you did.
So, when I had drafted my first 2 Pokemon, I had still initially thought, well, I lost Tapu Koko. I can still work with like I said, I was initially planning on doing just Electric Ground with some flexes to deal with like particular people. I was like, I have Gliscor for my flying. I have Choxtricity for my electric. I can still make this work.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2 of the key components of that were Altaria and Flygon. Flygon being a very versatile, very strong, like pseudo revenge killer that I could use with Levitate to make sure that if I was swapping off of one of my electric carries, I'd be able to do a free swap basically.
Right.
But when I picked up Flygon, I realized that Flygon and Altaria practically fill the same niche.
Right.
And having both of them was not only a little bit redundant, but also probably going to be like damning me to having slightly worse, because they filled a particular niche that I was trying to fill in that team setup. They weren't necessarily my damage dealers. They weren't my key cards. So I was like, if I have both of them, I'd have 2 slots completely dead to these flex picks that I'm using to revenge kill. And that sucked.
Right.
And so it came down to really trying to figure out what was going to get taken up first. If I thought somebody was going to draft Flygon, or if I thought somebody was going to draft Mega Altaria. Realistically speaking, I don't think somebody was going to draft either of them. But I ended up swapping after I screamed out, like, oh, I'm doing Flygon, easy. I ended up realizing, no, wait, I still don't have my Mega. And I just grabbed it because I was worried that I might lose it. I grabbed both of them. I'm definitely going to drop one of them before the end. Everything's said and done, but...
Gotcha. Yeah, so before we go on to some of the last stuff, is like Jake there and wanting to answer questions, or if not, we can just...
Yeah, I'm in the same room.
Gotcha.
We both so we're not double miking.
Yeah, gotcha. Just I'm double checking, Jake. Are you happy with what you got?
I actually am very happy with what I got. My main thing when I set out this time was that I wanted power picks. Like last draft, I didn't really go for those power picks. I think the only power pick I made last time was like Clefable.
Right.
But even then, Clefable, I was playing Clefable more as like a defensive reactive Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
And this time I picked up Charizard Mega X, I picked up an Alakazam, I picked up Azor, like things that I could actually play proactively with.
Yeah. Big heavy hitters. I got you.
Instead of relying on like fucking Goodra and
and
like
Mega Houndoom.
Yeah, and Mega Houndoom.
And everyone's excited about
getting is really important because I got destroyed last time. Specifically by Steel and Fairy types.
Mm-hmm.
I had no answers for Fairy types last time, basically, because Fortress doesn't do damage.
True.
And I just want to make sure that I had a team that I had proactive sweepers with.
Right.
Because that was my biggest mistake last time. It was like, cool, I walled them off. They just switched, and now I have no answers.
Yeah, so was there any Pokemon that was taken from you in the draft that you were like, oh man, I really wanted this one? Or are you like...
So first pick off the top was Slowbro.
Is that what you really wanted?
I wanted it. I was considering it. I was only annoyed because I literally had looked at the page. I was like, huh, maybe Slowbro, and then Britt picked it.
Because
He's
that being
he's downplaying it a lot, but really he screamed.
I was just known as the first pick.
that being the first pick was crazy.
Exactly. That's what threw me off. I was like, of course, it was the one I was looking at, even though no one else would fucking whatever. Other things I was looking at, I was actually looking at picking at Mega Heracross.
Mm-hmm.
But Mikey picked that up earlier. Final pick, I was looking at Magneton as well because of Magnet Pulse specifically. Because I remember last draft I had a lot of problem with like Celesteela and with Heatran being in here. It was kind of scary. But I think that overall, it's going to be a week-to-week basis for me as well.
Gotcha.
Like, I'm going to be looking for where I can slot in, like basically just switching answers.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Jake, you've been probably the person, apart from Cheaty, because we made fun of him a lot, the person that people have talked about the most, because you were in like kind of the last of the pack last draft, and it seemed that if you were willing to participate in this again, that you were going to be like, lack of a better word at the moment because it's late and I've talked for 4 hours, better. Like you were gonna like try, like beat Mikey, right?
I beat Mikey last time.
We were gonna beat him again.
He was my only win.
You're gonna beat him again, right? Like you're gonna win, right? Like that's like the mentality is like we're coming in here to play. It seems like everyone's a little bit more competitive. Do you feel like a little bit more like inspired to be competitive?
Definitely. I mean, I actually am not glad that I came in last place last time.
Fair enough.
But like it was kind of the thing where like almost everyone I fought, I either got shut out or it was really close. There was not a lot of like,
gotcha.
You know, or they have 3, I have 3. It's just gonna come down to like who does the correct predictions. You know, it was more so I could see what everyone else is doing, and I feel like being dead last and my placing not really mattering let me just go look at other stuff while I was like down at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably, granted, something I should have been doing anyway. But I don't know. I have a feeling that I have a lot better of an initial draft this time, where I now have a better idea of what I can actually do with my team.
Yeah, most people, anyone who's brought you up has been like, and then Jacob has a real team now, so that can be a threat. And like,
to Jacob's credit, last draft I forced him into it to even out our numbers.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
he joined by choice, so
it's exciting to like see it because it would be, you know, it's exciting to see like these like being like good Pokemon, and like it's like potentially like a threat. A lot of people were not happy about Jake's first pick because they're like, that was a good pick, god damn it, I wanted that thing, or I'm afraid of it. I don't know its name. Magirna.
I think it's Magirna. I said Megiarna, but
yeah, I said it super wrong, and I thought it was a totally different Pokemon when I said it out loud. So
that's okay.
Yeah, but yeah, you got some seriously good stuff, and like I think a lot of people are justifiably like intimidated. No one's like, oh, it's Jake. It's like, oh shit, Jake's got a team.
Yeah, I just remember now. Also, I was looking at Dragapult. That was the one that I was like, probably it was either that or Megiarna first pick, because I knew someone was going to take it immediately, and I'm surprised it didn't get picked before me.
Gotcha. So Jeff is asking this question because he doesn't know, but I know because he's my boy, Diggersby.
Yes. So Diggersby was the only consistent Pokemon I had, and also was super underestimated by everyone that I fought. Diggersby sits on like 440 base attack after each power.
Yeah.
Like it's just, if you're not built physically defensive, you're dead.
Right.
Stab Earthquake, you're dead. Like that's it. You're just dead.
Yeah, I know, Jeff. Ray also brought it up. He also questioned it. I think Diggersby is something. Well, Phil brought up. Phil was really happy with every single Pokemon he got. He's like, Phil thought that people were undervaluing some Pokemon in other tiers, and I think Diggersby is a great tier 3 pick. Because one of the few things I know is Diggersby is a good Pokemon. Because I used him. I used him when I played Pokemon competitively for like the 2 months I played X and Y. And so like I think Bigsby does a lot of work, and so
Well, that synergizes with what you said, where you just, you pick an attack move.
yeah. Basically, but also something that goes to like Greg, and a lot of people are picking Greg as like a fearful thing, is that Greg is really comfortable with a lot of Pokemon that he uses. He doesn't pick just good Pokemon, he picks good Pokemon that he's comfortable with. And I think that if you're comfortable with Diggersby, you should pick the Pokemon that you like using.
Exactly.
Because otherwise if you don't know what you're doing with it, what's the point of having it?
And I said that Greg is one of my bigger threats because of, half jokingly, because he's going to have more knowledge about what it is that I'm playing with than most people.
Right.
But in reality, I think that that's part of why I'm actually not so intimidated by Greg, is that because he does pick things, that he's comfortable with. In the last draft league, he did really, really well. But in the Tater Tot League, he was suffering a lot. Not a lot, but he was very middle of the pack. And part of that is because I think that, when it comes to like the things that he's comfortable with,
Right.
If he can't adapt, he's not going to be able to recover easily. So hopefully that's going to play a little bit to like the advantage of teams like mine or Jacob's, where it's like, who really knows what's happening over there?
Right, so that goes into it. So for the both of you, what people are you most excited to? What teams are you most excited to play against? What teams are you least excited to play against?
You go first.
Sure. I definitely am really excited to play against Brit.
Yeah.
I feel like Brit and I don't actually have like a particular rivalry, but we're very similar in a lot of like just little ways, so that whenever I play against Brit, I feel especially competitive. Like I'm driven to like do well. And I think that that's what makes me like really excited about this draft now, is that it's way different than his last draft. And he did so well in the first draft.
Yeah, he came in second.
Yeah, so now with not only that practice, but also the research and the information, he's going to be, in my opinion, really, really formidable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to have a lot of fun getting a chance to play against him for sure.
Gotcha. And you're least excited to play against Greg, or is there somebody else? Are you like...
I think that for me, because I am very, at least I know a lot of people take me to be somewhat middle of the pack. I'm less excited to play against like maybe like Adam, only because I think that his team is going to be strong and he's going to perform really strongly. But also, I still do get intimidated by like trying to like play on a hyper competitive level.
That's
and
fair.
That might very easily just psych me out enough to be a troublesome match.
Yeah, that's understandable. There is like a difference when you go up against somebody who is like, you're going up like a friend or someone is like kind of like goofing a little bit. You're going up against James or maybe like Wes or Cheaty, and then you go up against somebody like Mike Benet or Adam, who comes in and drops all this knowledge like what he just did. Like, hey, I'm top 100 on Showdown. I'm like, oh fuck.
Right.
Yeah. So Phil seems to be really well versed, Jeff. Phil is very confident in his team, and that confidence is intimidating to me.
I like his setup.
He was very happy.
Yeah.
So Jacob, what about you? What do you got?
I think I'm actually also really excited to fight Britt, because his team is actually very similar to a team like what I was originally going to go for. I actually was looking at Slobo, Katana, and before this all started anyway. So I want to see what he does with that team. It's different from what I would have done with this team. I think it'll just be interesting to see what he did with the setup.
Yeah.
And I think my least favorite of going up against, I'm scared. It's definitely between. Well, I mean, I'm always scared of Greg.
He's a scary person. That beard, the mustache, the bald head, the flannel.
He knows what he's doing, and I feel like whatever week we come to, it's just gonna be. I'm gonna walk in there. He's gonna be like, "Hey, good fucking luck," and then that's I think the one I want to least go against is Mike Benet, actually.
That's fair.
His team is scary, and I feel like every Pokemon on his team I look at and be like, cool, I don't know how to answer that Pokemon. Especially because Dox is just a Pokemon that I don't like seeing on this.
Yeah. I was surprised Milo didn't pick Toxapex again.
Because I had this grand idea in my brain of doing some niche team build that I hadn't tried before, I let her go, and I feel bad about it now, but...
I just didn't understand why you picked Gliscor, not Coco, when you literally said to me before the draft started, I'm going to build my team around Tapu Koko.
I don't want to talk about
it. So Jeff wants to know, Milo, how do you feel about losing to Blacephalon, whatever that is?
Blacephalon? Dude, okay. So Blacephalon, honestly, he carried me through a lot last split. And I think that for me...
Is that that stupid clown Ultra Beast?
Yeah, it's stupid clown. Dude, Disco Prince. Scary. He's my Disco Prince.
Okay.
So I think that he would have been problematic for me to have on my team because I wouldn't have been able to adapt with him. If I had him on my team, every single team build I did was going to be based around him. I was going to try to find ways to support him, and if he got shut down, he got shut down. There was two ways about it.
Right.
So I think that letting him go is probably going to be for the best as far as like competitively succeeding is concerned. But I am going to miss my boy.
So overall, before we end this, what do you guys think? How do you guys feel about the draft as it's coming up, season 2? Are you excited? Are you like what's going on?
I hope that we continue to have it be, like it is a for fun sort of draft.
Right.
I think that, having the competitive aspect makes it all that much more interesting, and that's going to be great. Especially for someone like me who, like I said, I think a lot of people see as middle of the pack. Hopefully I'll be able to show a more competitive side. But in the end, I'm really just hoping that it stays like the friendly kind of pseudo-competitive kind of draft league that it was last season. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's like it's fun because everyone's trying, but when people start like getting actually mad, not like the temporarily adrenaline, like not like if you lose, like if you die in Overwatch, you get mad because you have adrenaline in you and you're like, fuck, I'm mad. But if you if 4 hours later you're pissed off at your friends because you lost an Overwatch match, then it's gotten too competitive, right? And I feel like that's like the round we're in right here, is that everyone's trying, but nobody's gonna be like raging, right?
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully, as far as I can tell, that's kind of where we're at. So
yeah,
I'm really looking forward to it for sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Jake?
I definitely feel like there's a lot more competition, not just because there's more people, but because, now you guys did Little Cup. I didn't do Cup. I did miss out on that.
I didn't miss out on much.
I didn't miss out on much.
You can say that because you didn't come in second place.
I feel like I did. Kind of the only person that beat the number 1 winner.
Whatever.
Kind of second place.
But I think, now we're in the second split of doing this. People have a much better idea, especially with the draft itself. That Pokemon is a lot more fun when things are close.
Right, I agree.
If you sit there and it was like the games where like I had Reuniclus where I like swept out Mikey and it was like, okay, now you can't do anything to my Pokemon and you're just done.
Right.
It's a lot less interesting when that's every match. So it's nice to have a similar level of competition, except, a couple people who are a little better, but that also makes everyone else try a little harder,
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Right.
I know if I'm going up against Benet or Greg, like, I should pay attention and maybe I'll learn something.
Yeah, fair enough. That's awesome. Thanks for talking with me, guys. Have a good night and good luck in the draft.
Thanks.
See ya.
All right.